Hi there. So today we're going to do something a little bit different than usual. I am going to read a book. The book is geared towards parents and children and learning about the brain, particularly the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, in a way that's pretty fun. So I also think that it would be really beneficial for most people because it's such great information about how our brains work. So the book is called Poppy and the Overactive Amygdala, and it's created by Holly and Eric Provan. And I just want to have a big shout out to them for creating this resource. I am very grateful and I use it a lot in my practice and as a teacher formerly as well. Um, and they've dedicated it for the kids. Says, I'm going to read the page and then show you. Otherwise, sometimes the bottom of the page isn't seen by the camera. So, hi, my name is Poppy, and I look forward to getting to know you better. Here is Poppy. First off, I'm a pretty awesome kid. I love meeting new people and making new friends. Oh my goodness, you're my best friend forever. What is your name? I'm also a great swimmer. Cannonball! I love arts and crafts and storytelling. Reading is one of my favorite hobbies. And there's something else you should know. It's about me and my brain. Flip the page for some cool sciencey stuff that my mom helped me with. She's pretty great. And if I don't give enough time for the pictures, you can always pause so we can look for a little longer. All right. The brain has some pretty amazing stuff in it. I'm going to tell you about two parts that affect me the most. The first is the prefrontal cortex. It's located in the frontal lobe here. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for most of our very human traits, as it's the most evolved part of our brain. So some of the things it's responsible for include logic and complex thinking, planning and decision making, attention, judgment, time perception, impulse control, and social behavior. The second part of the brain I'd like to tell you about is the amygdala. It's an itty bitty tiny thing way down deep inside the brain. The amygdala, in contrast, is the prehistoric or reptilian brain, where many of our survival instincts come from. It is rigid and compulsive. And so it's responsible for fear conditioning, emotional learning, memory, behavior, and libido. So I'll show you the picture, but then let's talk more about the amygdala, as our relationship is a bit more, well, complicated. So the prefrontal cortex is sort of what's right behind your forehead. And the amygdala is closer down in the middle of your brain, closer to where your brainstem is. We're going to learn more about them, so don't worry if you need more information. So, the amygdala is part of the limbic system and is the area of the brain where emotions come from. It's also the region of the brain where the senses are located. So it's fair to say dysfunction in this area would have an effect on your sensory needs. We are going to talk lots about the amygdala. So first I'm going to talk about also the amygdala is responsible for the fight or flight response. And sometimes you'll hear freeze, which means you're stuck between both of those. So when a person senses danger, the amygdala sends a signal to release adrenaline. So your body readies itself to fight or flight, which you can call running away. So just pay attention to that little fact because we'll need it for later. So here we go. It's talking about the emotions. So it's happiness, sadness, anger, and fear. And here's the fight or flight, thinking about fighting the bear, and then decides, run away. Right. Okay. So now remember that itty bitty amygdala? Well, instead of turning on when needed, mine is always on. That means my brain is constantly signaling that there is danger, danger, danger. Adrenaline is in my body all the time. They call this chronic irritability in the brain field. It means that I'm always on alert, ready to fly into action at the slightest sign of danger. While you might not run into many bears in your hometown, unless you live in my hometown, there are many other things that can stimulate this fight or flight response in everyday life. So being put on the spot. And then the little bubble says, Timmy, can you tell me the square root of 783? He's going, oh no. So being put on the spot, facing a fear. There's someone at the top of the diving board, you'll see in a moment. Or a near miss. Ooh, and it's got a picture of someone almost being struck by lightning. For most people, this fight or flight response in everyday life is a good thing. It helps to keep them safe and it turns on when needed. So you can divert from danger or move away from danger. So when the neurotypical or the brain is stimulated with fight or flight response, so a brain that's functioning in a normal way, several things start to happen. The amygdala is switched on and sends a signal for the release of adrenaline. Adrenaline then leads to it decreased blood flow to the prefrontal cortex because it's putting your blood towards your major organs where it needs to protect and also jump into action. Your eyes will glass over. You'll begin having racing thoughts. Your pupils will dilate, which means they get bigger, so they're taking in all the information. You'll get sweaty palms, and your jaw might clenched jaw. Your digestion stops, so you can't digest your food when you're in an emergency situation. Your heart will speed up. Your lungs start to take quick, short breaths. You might have trembling muscles, so sometimes people have shaky hands or shaky legs. And your muscles receive more blood and tense up, ready to either fight or run away. So the body is now ready for action, to run or to fight. And so I'll show you that picture first, just because I gave a lot of information. So here's all that, the different parts of the brain. And you see how it's a caveman? Because that's what it was protecting us from pretty big dangers back when we didn't live in houses and had to find all our food. And so Poppy says, remember when I said I was always on alert? It also means that when my brain gets stressed, it gets really stressed. So neurotypical brains don't get stressed to the point of fight or flight very often. So it's more if there's something really dangerous happening. So Poppy's brain, though, gets stimulated many times per day. So she points at the top picture here and says, not my brain. And the bottom picture here and says, this one's more like it. And the brain's saying, the butterfly is going to sting me. Butterflies don't have stingers. Okay. So things that signal danger to my hyper alert brain might not seem dangerous to other people, but for me, my oversensitive amygdala can't tell the difference. And so there's a picture of Poppy that says, recess is over in 5 minutes. Put down your pencil. That's not the correct answer. You're out. Brush your hair. Time for bed. It's not your turn. Put your shoes on. No ice cream before dinner. Is your homework done? Go to the end of the line. Where's your coat? Put away your art project. Can you please correct this? Why did you do that? You lose. Art time is over. No, you can't have a puppy. Please color in the lines. Clean your toys. I would rather play with kids my age. Oh, that hurts. So this is the picture. When stress occurs, blood gets shunted to that greedy prehistoric amygdala and away from the prefrontal cortex. This causes a rapid and dramatic loss of cognitive ability, decision-making, and judgment. Dude, save some blood for me. My blood spends a lot of time here in the amygdala. He's saying, save some for me. In my brain, I receive an incredibly persuasive signal at any moment. I am going to need to run away or fight. So that's what it says by this guy. Yikes. In fact, studies have shown that the stress caused by frustration can cause a drop in up to 30 IQ points. And IQ points is how we measure like our ability to think and solve problems. And so this means that the ability to make a calm and rational decision is pretty much impossible. So in the ADHD brain, which is common, the prefrontal cortex is often delayed in maturity and growth by up to 3 years. This means that a kid with ADHD is about 2 to 3 years more immature and sometimes behave like a younger child in some ways, but not in all ways. So Poppy says, like I didn't have enough issues, just being a kid. Read on to learn how I react when my fight or flight response is triggered. So this is the page we were just reading. When I was little, I would get stressed a lot. The urge to run was a bit more of a problem. I even made it out the front door of the school a few times. Nowadays, if I decide to run, I will usually end up hiding on the playground. Poppy. Remember, the logic and reasoning part of my brain has decreased blood flow. Therefore, my rational thought and judgment are impaired during fight or flight. She's not thinking clearly or acting like herself. Instead of running, my brain might decide to fight instead. This can mean arguing, yelling, or even hitting if I feel threatened. I don't like it when I fight. It's even worse when I feel rage. These temper tantrums, or rages, as people call them, have been likened to an emotional seizure. No one can stop a seizure. It has to run its course, and all you can do is protect the seizing person from harm. But if I'm in a rage, it's important that you treat me with gloved hands. So if I'm touched, I might lash out. This is the absolute worst time to touch me. I can't be reasoned with in this moment. Remember that prefrontal cortex? It has no blood flow. The next page says, Rage 101. How to help. Do not engage. If able, allow outbursts to run its course safely. Calm demeanor, palms out, non-threatening. Express empathy. Ask, can I do anything to help? Do not try to reason. How to help. Give space, but keep me within eyesight. Don't approach me or attempt to move me. Do not touch me. Only if myself or others are in danger do you attempt to hold me. If I'm treated gently and appropriately, I might snap out of it. If I'm touched or provoked, a rage can last up to an hour or more. I need help recognizing when I can turn things around. Because remember, my brain is a little bit behind my intelligence. After a rage, blood flow to my prefrontal cortex will start to return. My ability to reason and rationalize slowly comes back. I feel guilty and embarrassed about losing control. I never want to act like that. Then it says, I hate myself. I'm out of control. Why can't I be normal? Why can't I listen? You hate me. I'm the worst. You don't love me. I don't want to be angry. So those little thoughts I wrote are all these ones right here, written in the black, or in the white, not in the black. Sadness. During this time, it's important for me to know that I'm still loved and I'm forgiven. I hate thinking that someone is mad at me. I might say that I hate myself, that I wish I was dead, that I'm just a stupid, dumb kid. I will be crying and incredibly contrite. I really do feel terrible. I understand that consequences are necessary and appropriate. It helps me to adapt my behavior in the future. In order to be effective, I should be warned of repercussions prior to reaching the rage status. Once I get there, reasoning with me is ineffective as I have literally lost control. Having this overactive amygdala and these rages has made my relationships with others, well, pretty challenging. Sometimes I play really well with other kids. Other times it can feel like a roller coaster of emotion. As you can imagine, it has been pretty hard to hang on to friends. Sometimes. This feels heartbreaking because I really, really do adore people. Every stranger I meet is a new potential best friend, and adventures are just waiting to be discovered. Yes. Dad says it's a miracle I haven't been kidnapped yet. And that's why you never lick a banana slug, she says. I'll show. She said that to this guy. But with all new friends, soon enough, my hair trigger amygdala kicks in. It can get pretty lonely, alienating your friends all the time, and they don't understand. They're just kids too. I wish I could tell them it scares me too, getting angry like that. So, how to help? Use caution with competitive sports. Encourage one-to-one interactions. I do better with one person than a group. Encourage complimenting others. I might forget to do that. Assign leadership roles when doing an activity. And before playing with friends, role play losing or being out in a sport. And give me some praise and compliments for sharing and taking turns in a way that feels genuine, because I can tell if it's not. Sensory dysfunction. So remember early on, I mentioned that the senses being near the amygdala too? Ding, ding, ding. This means my sensory needs can be wonky and that I'm extra sensitive to, well, everything. Pretty much everything. Loud noises, music, Brussels sprouts, slow cars, fast cars, textures, clocks and clicks, silence, smells, cold, heat, grasshoppers, background noise, wind gusts, smells. You'd think this guy would be exhausted with all that hyperactivity, the amygdala. And these will be different for each kid, the things that are overwhelming and sensitive to. How to help? Okay, so how can we help Poppy? Be aware of triggers. When stressed, my sensory problems increase. Be aware of increased irritability, which increases my sensory sensitivity. Pay attention to cues that senses are overloaded. Sometimes I might be able to eat next to my brother, and sometimes his chewing is too much. Depends on how much extra I have to give that day. Encourage me to have a good diet, and frequent snacking, especially protein, is helpful because it gives longer energy instead of quick energy. And with all that extra activity, of course, I have quite a bit of anxiety. I mean, who wouldn't? Having a brain that's constantly scanning the world for threats can make it pretty difficult to overcome my worries, but I try my best. I'm learning more techniques and putting them into practice every day. I've heard having this chronic irritability brain is similar to what it feels like to live in a war zone. It sounds scary, huh? Well, how you can help is encourage deep breathing, especially before I start to get activated. Encourage talking about my worries so they don't have as much power over me. Allow me to have breaks as needed to calm my body. And provide a comforting space and activities. Social perception. Sometimes my social perception can be off because of my ADHD and my hyperamygdala tendencies. I might think others are out to get me when they're not. It makes games rather difficult. Even if someone is offering to help, if I'm extra irritable, I might see their help as threatening. So if a person says to me, "Sorry, Poppy, we have a full team," I might hear, "You can't play because we hate you." Or if someone tags me and says, "Tag, you're it," I might hear in my brain, "I tagged you because you're slow and bad at this." If a teacher says to me, "It's Sarah's turn to go first," My brain might think Sarah's going first because Miss S likes her more than me. It's a bummer to always expect the worst. So how we can help is by reframing the situation. Sort of, how would you feel if you tagged someone else? Would you think they were slow? Probably not. You probably just think you were really fast that day or you got lucky. Use relevant personal examples. So things I've experienced before or things that I'm interested in so that I can absorb that information. Explain rules prior to the games I'm playing, not as it's happening. That's really overwhelming to learn in the moment. I'd follow the rules if I knew what they were. Coach and role play being out. So like in baseball, if you don't hit the ball, you might be out. Or if in dodgeball, if you get hit, you might be out. It's just part of the game and it happens to everyone. But if your brain is telling you that it's because of you, then that's really hard. So just that reminder before playing is really helpful too. And talk and talk and talk about it. Eventually, my brain will start to remember, and maybe I'll think about it in the moment. So here's what we were looking at. So here's what it feels like. And here's the talking, but the messages that go to Poppy's brain are very different than how someone else might see what's happening right now. As you can see, I need a lot of help keeping this grouchy amygdala under control. What with my underdeveloped prefrontal cortex from my ADHD and friendship challenges and sensory dysfunction and anxiety and social perception issues, I really am quite a feat. Phew, what a mouthful. I need lots of help to be my best self because I'm a kid who's still growing and learning. Here's some things you can do to help me succeed. Positive reinforcements, like all the time, as much as possible. Warnings before a transition happens, even little ones. Reminders of the rules prior to all games, even if I've played them before. It just helps to prime me for success. Use routines and post a clear schedule of the day. That way I know what's happening. Frequent daily reminders before gym and recess of behavior expectations, so I don't get too silly. Leadership roles. I love to feel helpful. Reassurance after I make mistakes, because I always feel awful about what I did, even if I'm mad at someone else at the same time. Fierce hugs and encouragement, if I like hugs. Some people like them and some people don't. Empathy and forgiveness. And most importantly, I need understanding. I need empathy. I need you to know that I'm struggling with something invisible and that my behavior does not always reflect who I am. I need guidance, reassurance, and love while learning to manage this guy, amygdala. There he is with the arrow pointing to him there. Mom says I am 200% of everything. If I'm happy, I will light up from the inside, and so will others around me. And when I'm sad, every cell in my body is in despair. And when I'm angry, I feel fire running through my brain. Through it all, I need help managing my emotions, whatever they are, until the sun starts to shine again. Emotions will come and go. And Dad says that nothing lasts forever. So thank you for supporting me on my journey to being my best self. Here's the back of the book so you can see the people who wrote it. Well, I hope that that was enjoyable and that you learned a lot today about yourself or about someone you love, or just a better understanding of how the amygdala is and the prefrontal cortex, while they impact everyone, it's just extra sensitive when someone has ADHD. All right. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. And see you next time. Thanks for taking the time to take care of yourself today and learn a little something.